everyone, I'm Meredith Bernstein, an applications engineer here at Instron. Thanks for logging in today to listen to this help session about our Bluehill Universal Help File. This is a really useful tool that has a ton of information about both Bluehill Universal itself as well as key terms related to materials testing. The session is really intended to help you, so please jump in with any questions and we'll make sure to address them toward the end of the session. We're planning on going through just some examples of what kind of information you can find in the help file, including key definitions as well as explanations of calculations and some step-by-step for procedures in Bluehill Universal that you might need some extra support with. So we really want to make sure that you can get the most out of this awesome resource that's contained right within your software. So let's hop into Bluehill and we can go ahead and take a look at this. So the first question is, how do we access the help file? The help file is always accessible in the top right corner of your screen with this question mark. So if I go ahead and press that button, the help file is going to pop up. The screen that it will initially jump to is going to be relevant to wherever you are in the software. So right now I'm on the home screen. So the screen that it's bringing me to is this online help title page that gives me a bunch of sections and quick references that are related to where I'm at in my testing process. So you'll see pages related to getting started, examples of how to do things in the software, and something else that you might need to do as you're beginning to test, such as prepare the frame or configuring anything in the system. Largely how to navigate the help file is located over here on these 4 tabs on the left side of your screen. So information is organized under a table of contents, with all these header categories, under which you'll find lots of subcategories and pages buried within there. You'll also find an index where everything is sorted alphabetically, all of the terms that you can find in the help file. And then the search button, which is probably the most commonly used way of accessing the help file, just because you can type in a keyword and then you'll see all of the relevant topics to that keyword. So if I went ahead and typed in offset yield, for example, and then press enter or list topics, you'll see that we have about, whatever this is, 15 different pages that pop up. You'll see offset yield in the lowercase is giving me a definition for what this term means. The uppercase offset yield is going to bring me to a page for that calculation. So this is listing out all of the different parameters that I need to know in order to properly set up this calculation. It gives me a definition of the algorithm, and it gives me an example of how this actually works and what this is looking at on a specific test curve. I also have information if this calculation isn't working, the results I can pull from this, as well as links to other pages. So the help file really tries to guide you toward other useful information that is relevant to whatever term you've looked at. So if I search offset yield, it's giving me the parent topic of yield, or specific examples that are relevant to this concept as well. The other pages that you see popping up are anywhere else in the software that this term is mentioned. So if I open up yield, you'll see it's highlighting offset yield because that's the term I searched. So the help file really just tries to guide you toward all of the relevant information toward whatever term it is that you're looking up. The last tab you'll see off on the right or on the left side of the screen here is favorites. So if I go ahead and click on favorites, it will then let me add topics to this list. So I've actually already added yield as a favorite. But if I were to go back to search, let's say go to my offset yield definition page and then go back to favorites, you'll see that there's this add button at the bottom, and I can go ahead and add that to my list. If I went back to my home screen, which is that initial page we opened up to, and then go back into my favorites tab, I can now quickly access any of these topics that I've saved. So I can click display at the bottom here, and it's just going to bring me right back to that offset yield definition. So if there's any pages in the help file that are really awesome references that you want your operators or whoever's interacting with the software to be able to access frequently, this is where you can do that. So let's go ahead and open up a specific sample file, and then we can look into a couple more ways that the help file is really helpful for looking up, both definitions related to materials testing, as well as specific questions about how to navigate Bluehill or what things mean in Bluehill. So here I am in my test workspace. So if I were to just go ahead and open up the help file from here, you're going to see that it brings me to this test workspace header page instead of that home page from the last time we opened it from the beginning entry screen of the software. So this is going to give me a bunch of subpages, parent topics, and related concepts related to navigating the workspace. So how to set this up, what you're seeing on the screen right now, and what some of these things mean. So it also is really nice. It gives me procedures. So if there's something that I don't know how to do, I can pretty quickly look here and go, okay, if I need to customize a layout, it's walking me through a procedure to do that and sort of guiding me in that direction. So one of the pages here that just to take a quick look at an example. So specimen selector component. This term may not be immediately obvious what it is that it means, but if we go ahead and select that, you'll see that this basically is giving me a legend to these icons you see on the right side of your screen. So, this is where we keep track of individual specimens that we've tested and the data associated with them. This table is showing me what each of these means. So, specimen 9 with the white untested specimen, and then my little red icon is telling me that it's the next specimen to be tested. Any of the ones that have a line down the middle indicate that this test is complete, the specimen is broken. This little do not enter sign means the specimen is tested, but it is being excluded from the statistics right now. So this is a really nice reference to, just some symbols that are in Bluehill that may not be obvious from immediate glance, but if you, poke around in the help file relevant to the workspace, you can get some more useful insight into what those mean. We can close out again. So something else that, you may want to find out more about is different calculations. So in this case, I'm using a chord modulus for my sample file. But if I want to know how that's calculating and maybe, what's the difference between that and a different type of modulus calculation, we can go ahead and search the word modulus. Oops, modulus. And this is referenced a lot in Bluehill because it's obviously a pretty common term. So, we can find what our just definition is of modulus. And then if I click this modulus header page, this is going to list out all of the different types of modulus calculations that are available. And then, again, it's going to give me, a link to a page where I could edit that calculation and other related concepts. And if I want to go ahead and look at chord modulus, it's going to give me, again, all of the different parameters for setting up this calculation, as well as the algorithm, an example, and a visual for how it's actually calculating that chord modulus, the results I can indicate, and again, more parent topics, related concepts, step-by-step, and even some examples. So if I wanted to understand, chord modulus versus segment modulus, I can go back, and then I could open up a different calculation type. So let's look at segment. And again, it's going to have all of the same information. So if I'm trying to better understand what's going on in my test procedure and why maybe to use one versus the other, these pages in the help file really give you a ton of information on what the software is actually doing. So one other example of something that I might need some support from the help file to walk me through how to find something or how to do something in the software is looking at this tensile strain AutoX title on my graph. So I want to figure out how I can edit the text for this because I know from having done this testing, and you can actually see here, what is this, specimen, the green one, specimen 8, shows some necking toward the end of my test. So the way that I set up this test to run was to use my AutoX strain through yield, and then to remove the AutoX and use crosshead strain through the end of the test. So this is all contained in my tensile strain measurement, which is a composite measurement, but calling it AutoX in the graph title might be a little bit misleading. So I'm going to go into the help file and see if I can learn more about how to actually relabel that graph. So if I open up the help file and let's search, let's try x-axis. So we got a lot of stuff here, but I'm going to scroll down to where it says x data parameters for the graph. That might be a good starting point. And looking at this, it's telling me that to set up more than just the basic definition, I need to go to the advanced graph styles screen. And it actually is giving me that as a related concept. So if I go to advanced graph styles, this is now defining everything that I can change and edit within the advanced graph styles. So if I scroll down, x-axis, and this is where it says title. So I know that in that advanced section, I can then go ahead and edit the title for my x-axis on the graph. So, all right, let's close out and go to edit, advanced, x-axis, and now you'll see that this is an editable text field, and I might just want to say, you know what, let's just call it tensile strain, call it a day, and now you'll see that that's updated live on my graph. So those are just a few examples of the types of information and types of things that you can search within the help file. And I'd love to see what questions you have and walk through some more examples for you all. So can we access the help file outside of Bluehill? Yes, absolutely. So if I minimize my Bluehill window, you'll see a shortcut on the top of the screen here. This automatically installs on a dashboard when Bluehill Universal is put on there. So if I go ahead and open that up, it's going to link me to this panel that has multiple sort of help references for Bluehill Universal. But if you open up specifically this Bluehill Universal with the question mark, it's going to bring me to the help file, and it'll default to that same home screen that we've seen a couple of times. So if you're not actively working, in a test method, but need to look up some key definitions or better understand how the software does something, you can absolutely access it when you're not within the software itself. Open that back up. So what is a calculation status number? So calculation status number is something that you'll find within method and then your workspace and your results. So for any calculation that you're running, you'll see, any of the results that you can typically display. And then you'll also see something called status number. So if I go to the help file and search what that means, so calculation status number, press enter. We can go ahead and click on one of these, scroll down and see, okay, so the status number basically is a numerical code that tells you if your calculation is working properly or not. And the biggest thing is that it tells you why it may or may not be calculating properly. So if you have a calculation that you've plugged into your file and it's not giving you results, this is a really great thing to display to understand why it might not be working properly. So tables like this within the help file, within specific calculations, define for you what each of these status numbers mean, and essentially giving you direction on how you can tweak the parameters in that calculation to make sure that it works properly. So it's a really nice troubleshooting tool, and the help file is where you can find information on what those status numbers mean, and then the error as to, essentially what it is you need to change to make that work properly. Let's see. Is it case sensitive? So it is not case sensitive. So, let's try, I think we searched this earlier, but if I were to search modulus, you'll see that both lowercase and uppercase results will come back. And again, anywhere that this term is referenced in the help file is going to show up on this topics list here. So, I could open, flex your test controls, and it'll highlight the place that modulus is referenced. Also to note here, like if I accidentally made a typo and didn't type in the word modulus, it'll just tell me that nothing popped up. So this is searching the whole help file for that word as you've entered it. And if that term isn't found, or if you put in a typo, it'll just tell you that there's no topics related to it. So I think we have time for one more question. So what options are there for raw data export? Okay, so if we go ahead and search raw data in the help file, see what we come up with. It's referenced in a lot of places, but if we scroll down to raw data itself, we get a definition as to what this is. So this is the actual data points from the testing system. If we open up menu items, we get this header page with a couple of other sub-page options. So if I'm looking to format the data table before I export it, I can open up this format for the raw data table page. And again, it's going to give me some more examples, some concepts that are related to this, as well as the parent topic, which is the page we were just on. I can click back. And if we want to look at how to format different columns for the raw data table, this tells me how I can add different measurements to my raw data table before I want to export it. So just sort of any relevant information to that key term and giving you some instructions on what you need to do in Bluehill relevant to that topic. So I think that's all we have for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope this was some valuable information and gave you some insight as to how you can utilize this resource in your own testing. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.